So after the announcement of Mike Flanagan taking over The Exorcist, I finally pulled out Absentia. Absentia?
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 Absentia? Absentia. Death and
Such a
absentia.
weird word. Because Kaylee had never seen it. I think this is the only Flanagan project at this point you hadn't seen.
Yeah.
We had always wanted to watch it. I have seen it before. I saw it when it came out, actually. It was the first Flanagan film I saw. And then I saw Oculus. I've seen every one of his films in order. But anyway, so this was crowdfunded on Kickstarter. They tried to raise 15 grand. They ended up raising 25. And the rest is history. So we have an actual pregnant lady in here playing our main character. And she is indeed pregnant with Mike Flanagan's kid. But he was just married to someone previous to this film, which he just divorced. And then few years later married Kate Siegel and had 2 kids with her. So this was like his, I don't know, rebound girl that he had a kid with. I don't know how that works.
What their relationship was like.
But she ended up being in not only this, but she was in Oculus. And I think she's also in like Before I Wake or something like that. So she ended up being in a few of his movies, but Kate, I guess, won the day when it came to the director's, favorite girl and putting her in the movies and TV shows. I mean, I've seen this maybe one other time, and I was really curious on how this was going to hold up. And for $25,000, you want to factor that in, but this is a perfect example of if you got talent, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter. And you can tell that there's a budget issue, right? The actors in this are amateur-ish, especially like the detectives. They feel like, they're in a student film in places. And a lot of the like exterior shots especially feel very cheap. They feel like a camcorder footage of like just shooting exterior shots, establishing shots of like the exterior of buildings or like just like trees blowing in the wind or cars driving by or whatever. That literally just feels like someone took a camcorder and filmed the street with bad lighting and everything. So there's obvious glaring things here, but the writing and especially the direction when the horror comes. The horror in this is super well directed.
Yes, it is. I actually liked the acting and the feel of everything. I think maybe part of it is because I enjoyed the movie in general. So, but those elements kind of gave it a charm to me. Just like a grittier kind of more rough around the edges Mike Flanagan. But I agree. I think that the horror is like very well done for, how limited of a budget. And as you already said, I think that this just showcases like his talent. Like he's a really talented writer and director. And he knows how to build suspense. And he also, what he does really well, and this is evident in I think pretty much all of his movies and the TV shows that he does with Netflix.
Grief.
It's grief, but it's like he can really connect emotional things to horror.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like, let me show you something scary. It's like there's an emotional tie-in to all the horror elements in everything that he does. And that's why I love it so much, because it really shows how it's just like the richness and the horror of like the human experience at times, and what we feel in so many different situations. And obviously in this one, the main thing is grief for sure. But I loved it. Guilt and grief.
Yeah.
I really loved it. I thought that it was very, like, I liked the color grading that was done on it too. Like it has it did have that gritty feel, like I said. And I really liked the relationship between the sisters. I thought that they had some really great chemistry. just from the beginning, I like the way that they were making jokes together. It felt really natural. And then like kind of watching their relationship be strained through like what's happening and when her husband returns and everything. And you know, even though the detective is maybe a little cheesy, I still kind of liked his relationship with her. And of course, you know, all the horror works just so well. It's so unsettling and so simple too.
I think it would be really fun to see Mike Flanagan remake this right now.
Just that would be interesting, yeah, with a budget.
Take like a month.
Yeah.
Not even. Few weeks, budget, and redo it. See what you can do with it now. I bet he could make it even better. It's not necessary.
No,
it would just
I
be
don't
a
think it
fun
is.
Experiment. Because I remember Quentin Tarantino played with this idea because he has this 10 film limit. And one of the things he played around with the idea of was remaking Reservoir Dogs as his last film to see how far he's come as a director, to see how much he could elevate his first film. And now, while I would not want Mike Flanagan to do this as his last thing, it would just be a fun experiment to see how much he has evolved as a director and what he could do with this story with a budget and how he could tweak it and what he could bring to it new. As far as like the kind of folklore aspect of this film, with like the Three Billy Goats Gruff story and creatures who live in the darkness, who live in tunnels, who live in the underneath. That actually kind of felt like, you know what this actually reminded me of?
It reminds me of Hellier.
It reminds me of Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
Right? They're like getting pulled into the upside down, but they don't have an 11 to get them out.
I was thinking of the Hellier documentary.
I never watched it, so...
Yeah.
You showed
you
me
watched
like
some of it with me,
5 minutes.
But it's about like underground cave systems in America and the weird things that happen in and around them and sightings of creatures and all kinds of stuff.
Digging Up the Marrow does this too.
Yeah, and so, but I really liked that tie-in to, because it is very much like, like humans have kind of always been like, had an association with caves and tunnels and things underneath the earth, and like maybe there's
we fear the unknown
else. But I love it, and I think that it's done really well in this. And the Billy Goat Gruff, like, that's super cool to have tie-in. And yeah, it's like I really love everything with that weird little like tunnel. The guy that's in there, like the very beginning of him being like, you can see me, and like,
that's Doug Jones.
It's sleeping, and
who's like a big like prosthetic actor, almost like a Doug Bradley. He's done a lot of like it's like Andy Serkis does the mocap and Doug Jones does like the full body suit like stuff. You know, he did like Shape of Water and stuff like that.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it was just crazy to see him in here because he's kind of a bigger name but I don't know. I guess no one really knows who he is, but they should. But it was cool to see him in here. He has a very small part. I'm sure he only had a day on set kind of thing, but I'm sure Flanagan was very excited to see him. One thing we didn't get here technically, although maybe we did, and maybe like a Blu-ray would show that we did get this, we didn't get any white eyes. But there is a scene at the very, very end.
Oh, yeah.
Where the girl's like standing in the tunnel, like at the opening of the tunnel, and he looks up and he sees her kind of like, and it almost looks like she has her mouth open and has like dead eyes.
Yeah.
But it's so pixelated and out of focus that's what it looks like. Now, my question to you is this. Couple things. Number one, is her seeing her husband in the house while she's like getting ready and all of that, is that just grief? Or is he actually like projecting himself into that situation from the what do they call it?
The underneath.
The underneath. Because he's just about to come back. It's almost like now the sister makes an offering.
Yeah.
But the offering's given to her Like, they just show up in her bed and then she offers it back. I don't really understand how any of that works. I don't really get that exactly.
I don't remember if she started seeing her husband before the sister gave an offering.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So I think that...
But why was the offering given to her and then she just gave it back? Like, it ended up in her bed.
I don't think... Well, it was put on the doorstep and then she tried to take it back. And, like, that guy warned her. But why was it
put on the doorstep?
I think that was just, like, an exchange happened. Like, I think that was just,
but
like...
it's not an offering. Like, if you hand me something
I don't think that what
she
was given... She wasn't given the offering because her offering was the bread that she brought. I think that was just, like, the trinkets. No,
the bread was for the guy in the tunnel that she felt...
That's the offering.
She just felt bad for him.
No, he was like, we'll trade. Let me trade with you. And she brought that back.
I thought she just brought that back because he's like a hungry guy that she was like, I'm going to take care of you.
That's what she's doing. Like, that's why she's doing it. But it's a transaction that happens, like, metaphysically or whatever.
So it's
energetically. So she gives the bread, which is then taken as an offering. That's why, like, that guy's bringing dogs and stuff. And those, like, trinkets and coins that are there is...
Like kind
of
victims.
Like a receipt, almost like, all right, like we did the deal. Like that's how I took it.
Those are supposed to be like riches.
Well, but I think the detective even says like, yeah, these are things that have been missing from other households.
From the people who went missing.
I don't know if it's from people who went missing or if it's just from around the neighborhood. I kind of like that it would be just like things
that random shit.
Well, yeah, like sort of. Like, you know, like when you lose your socks or whatever, like this idea that things are going into like some other dimension and like sometimes people go there too. So, him showing up, the husband showing up afterwards, I don't know if it's him. I'm kind of inclined to think that it's the entity a little bit.
Really?
But I don't know. Only because it could be him. It could be the husband, but I don't think he's... I don't know. I guess I don't know really what I think about that. I think it's really creepy for sure, though. I think that like all the shots of him just appearing and...
Why would the spider, that is the entity to me. It's like a spider. Why would the spider take itself back and not even take the girl with it when it steals him back? You see what I'm saying?
Why would the spider take
like
him
the
back?
husband? It pulls him and then takes him down into the tunnel, and then the sister chases after, and she doesn't even get taken. It's like it's not a lure. He straight up just gets taken back. So like, why would it take itself back to not take anyone? Like it would only use him as a lure. Right, so I feel like he definitely escaped. And when he comes into the room and he shows her the Billy Groats, you know, he's reading it and he's just like, this isn't how it is, you know, and that stuff. And then when he's taken, and I don't know what kind of effects they're using here, but there's some really cool stuff being done with like the spider legs and then like when he's being pulled into the wall, it's very quick.
Yeah.
But it's creepy.
It's really creepy.
All the stuff with like him, the way that he's shot, like when when she walks in the room and he's got his back facing and then the camera kind of tilts this way and comes back and he's looking right at her.
Yeah.
And then he appears behind her or from the side. And then like all of the stuff where there's that subtle horror of like she's trying to get ready and he's just standing like out of focus right here and she's like kind of ignoring him. But
I love that.
That shit's phenomenal.
Yeah, and then my favorite scene is probably when she's trying to meditate and he's like behind her and then he's over here and he's like whispering and stuff.
And it's that like so inaudible stuff that you're like really trying to focus on. I love it.
It's really creepy.
He just knows how to do horror so well.
Yeah, yeah. And I also, I just really love how it's shot in general. I also really like when, like, for example, she's, like, imagining scenarios. I like that that's shown of, like, you know, him finding her with the detective outside and, like, her sister shooting up and, like, that's what really happened. Like, imagining what had happened. I like that it's shown as, like, I don't know, it's really cool the way that it's shot. And,
yeah, and I like as you were saying, kind of. I like a lot of the kind of fantasy scenarios that people go through. Like at the end of like, how did this go down? And like they imagine them like leaving together or whatever. Like I like that stuff
like what
a
they're
lot.
thinking. Yeah, I do too. I think that's really nice and really well done. And yeah, I mean, it's a terribly sad ending, though, obviously.
And
the whole family goes missing.
Yeah.
Gets taken. And yeah, her being there and at the end is a very eerie shot. It's very, very scary.
Well, the ending is super fucked up.
Yeah.
So this is something, we didn't even talk about. So, she wants to trade.
Right.
She wants to trade. And so it agrees. It agrees to a trade. And what does it trade for?
Yeah.
The dead baby that it ripped out of the sister and just left the dead, like the baby dies and is just laying there as she's taken into it. So it's like her being pregnant adds to the grief.
Yes.
But it also adds to this fucked up ending of like, I'm trading the baby. Like, I'll trade you for a human life here. Yeah. And the baby dies as it's laying there and she gets taken. That is so evil. And it's so subtle. Yeah. You can barely even tell that that's what happens. But you really got to be paying attention to know, like, oh wow, that's really fucked up. They didn't really focus on it. They didn't have like an excessively gruesome scene or anything. No, it's like the baby laying there and dying and screaming for nothing like that. It's just like a dead fetus laying there, and it's like, okay, trade made.
Yeah, the other reason that I really like that is because it does sort of tie into this like folklore idea. Like, even though it's not specifically about, like, fairies and fae, like, that's a big part of fae folklore is, like, you can't, like, they're tricksters. So, you might think you're making a good deal. Yeah. It's sort of like the monkey's paw kind of thing, where there's, like, an unintended consequence. Like, it's not quite what you want it to be. So, I really like that aspect as well. Like, it's not playing fair. Yeah. Because it just makes it so unbeatable because it's like, what are you gonna do? Like,
Flanagan loves that. Flanagan loves it. It's the same thing he does in Oculus. You just can't beat the mirror.
I mean, I think that's also the other thing too, like whenever you have like supernatural horror, like that's what's so scary about it is you're like, what do you do? Like, you think you maybe know, but you don't know. And it does kind of like tiptoe around the edge of like a cosmic horror type of vibe. Like, it's not really cosmic horror, but it is that like, what do you do? Like, how can you even handle it?
And the movie also never like makes these dumb decisions, right? So this is what I'm always screaming when we watch these types of lower budgeted films where it's like, well, they just didn't have the budget. Doesn't matter. Writing is just as clever as you can be, right? It's just you don't have the talent. And Mike Flanagan does. That's just really what it comes down to. Are you a talented enough writer to take your limitations and turn them into your strengths? And, I mean, we've watched tons of... I mean, put this up against, like, Imaginary from this year that has literally probably 10,000 times the budget. Yeah. Right? And everything at its disposal. Every camera, every trick, every, special effects person, this and that. Just the final scene, which is probably the, I don't know, there's a lot of good ones, but like the creepiest thing to me in the whole film is the final shot of the girl just standing outside of the tunnel, just like, and it's just out of focus and it's hard to see, and you're looking at it, you're like, what the fuck is
it's
that?
like, what happened, and like, she's trapped.
She's like trying to lure someone into like, potentially trading or make an offering or whatever. And I don't know, man, that's such an eerie shot. And to just think that like obliterates, a bunch of the bigger budgeted movies we've watched this year. It's like, that just shows you, I mean, the raw talent on display here. And that's why Mike Flanagan is Mike Flanagan. And, you only get directors like this once in a while. And he's a master. And this is a fantastic, ultra low budget directorial debut. I know this is like feature. I know he did like Oculus Chapter 3 or whatever, the short that he made before this. But this is his first feature. And I think it is a remarkable film. And also, funny enough, I would be bummed if I didn't bring this up. I don't have it on me. It's kind of out of reach at the moment. But the DVD, the cover, it's kind of infamous because it has this stock image of a girl like reaching out on the front cover, which has been used on like 50 different ultra low budget films. And my friends and I have pointed it out to each other like every time we've seen that image used on a cover. Unfortunately, Absentia has that cover, and it's kind of funny that it's that a film that is so not generic, that is so not cookie cutter, that is so not forgettable of a low budget horror film. Like every other one of these has this like horrendous, awful stock image that's like as generic and cookie cutter as humanly possible.
That's funny.
So it does not sell the film at all. Like if I saw that cover, I would be like, oh my God, another one of those?
Yeah.
No way I'm watching this. Yeah. But I mean, you just sometimes, you never know.
Can't judge by the cover sometimes.
Not on this one.
Yeah.
But I've seen that cover used so many different times, and it is funny that Mike Flanagan's first film is one of the films that got that shitty cover. So anyways, if you have not seen it, you are doing yourself a disservice. If you're a Flanagan fan, if you're a Flanagan,
yes,
you definitely
go watch it.
Gotta watch it,
yes.
Even though we just kind of ruined it for you. But I still think it's worth a watch.
Yeah, me too.
Or 3. I need to rewatch it. Even after we just talked about it, I would love to see this get like a good Blu-ray cleanup so I can see things better, and I would like to really pay attention to some of the lore in this again to get some questions answered. This thing would do well on multiple viewings, I feel, just to kind of like dissect the lore behind this entity, whatever the hell you want to call it. So yeah, I like that idea of like, you know, every culture in the history of man has written about stuff like this. Like, there's got to be some truth to it, right? I always like that. Even though who knows if it's true or not. It sounds good. It's intriguing.
It is intriguing.
So, I like it, and I really like how it's used here. And as you said, I think the sisters are solid as hell. And Bean has something to say about it. She just came from the underneath.
Yes, she's always in the underneath.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let us know if you watch it. What's your favorite Flanagan film? What's your favorite Flanagan TV series? And have you seen this? Let us know. All right, guys.